I am extremely honored, actually, by being here, by being invited to speak with all of you. You are my mentors. I am pretty excited to be learning from you, not only through hearing you talking today, but through talking outside these big rooms, right? Strategizing with Lauren, Marilyn, Larry. Thanks to CWA, Align is here. Align was born actually through the vision of CWA. We used to be known as New York Jobs with Justice before we became Align. So thank you for that. You guys made it possible for me to be here and made it possible for us to do the work that we do here in New York City. So I want to start with that, and then I want to say a little bit about myself. You can probably hear I have an accent. So I am an immigrant. I am a woman of color who was born in Ecuador. I moved to the United States about 18 years ago with the idea of learning English and going back to my country. Well, it didn't happen. I ended up staying here mainly because I was very passionate about the work that I was doing during my time in college, organizing with the United Students Against Sweatshops, with NYPIRG. And I was extremely excited to see that this work can happen here without being afraid. I used to do similar work when I was in Ecuador, and it was difficult. So organizing and now being paid organizer was an amazing thing for me to actually experience at that time. This was like 18 years ago. Yeah, my God, I feel old. So I stayed because the movement actually opened their arms and allowed me to work around housing issues, work rights issues. I did some consulting work, which really inspired me so much to be able to be part of the Jobs with Justice movement, back then with Long Island Jobs with Justice. So that's why I'm here. So you all and the movement itself got me, and I'm here. My entire family still lives in Ecuador. And now what I do is actually lead an organization that is moving the work to transformation. So Align is the Alliance of Greater New York. What we do, we build coalitions and long-standing alliances, justice, faith groups. And the work is not only about building up campaigns and strategic campaigns, but also transforming the economy, looking at the root causes of income inequality, and specifically thinking about how do we change the situation that we're living in when it comes to climate change, right? So there's always a talk about like we can't have jobs in a dead planet. That is real. That's very real. We think that climate change is a thing, right? That just appear. But the reality is that climate change is the result of income inequality. Climate change actually is happening because of racial injustice. It's happening because of gender injustice. It's happening because our workers haven't been able to get paid well, right? So all those issues that we're talking about today and how those issues intersect is what we're trying to do here at Align by working at the intersection of the economy, equity, and the environment. And what I want to talk about specifically on what we're doing is similarly on the common good work, similarly to Lauren's work, similarly to talking about sectorial work. And as a new leader, perhaps I've been as ED here at Align for almost 2 years. What we've been thinking about is experimenting with what we have. A couple things I want to share. One is in terms of how do we build power when we don't have it and our people don't know that they have it and that they can actually be moved, right? So the need for organizing on the ground with the mass population and people who even are in the unions is really critical today. I was speaking with a labor union leader recently, I'm not going to say who, but he was sharing to me his frustration about how is that all the members that he have not voted. And he said, well, look, there's pockets of neighborhoods in New York City that, we have tons of members and they're not getting engaged in anything. What can we do? Well, I love challenges. And I said, look, that sounds something I would like to be involved in. Why don't we talk about going into those neighborhoods? Give me the map. give me the names. We go into these neighborhoods and actually talk to your folks about things that they care about. We don't have to talk about wages and benefits. We don't have to talk about your union. We can talk about things that they care about. It could be the traffic light. It could be the housing issue. It could be water. It could be anything. Let's just talk and meet people where they're at. Let's go back to the old times of how organizing actually happened. So the idea here was just to build capacity based on what people need rather than telling people what they need. Well, this person was like really excited about the idea, and we're going to start doing some of this work, not only for these coming up elections, but in the future as an opportunity to just engage with members, particularly in the public sector unions, right? Now, luckily, we don't see a lot of decline on membership, right? Like folks that are still paying their dues. But I expected if we don't actually get ahead of the game, we're going to be losing members. Right? And the only way I believe we can actually keep members in the unions is if we meet where people are at, we understand what their needs are. So that's something that we're going to be starting doing, and this is not something new. That actually has been part of the movement. That has been something that has been done. We just have to go back to it. So that's one thing that we're trying and experimenting with. The other thing I want to talk about is a little bit of what Laura mentioned around Amazon. Right, so our economy is changing. Our economy is changing because technology is happening, because all these big corporations are actually they're creating new ways of somewhat controlling us, right? Like I feel like my kid is asking me, he's 5 years old, like he's like talking to Google in this little thing. I'm like, wait, what is happening here? Google, put this music on. I'm like, what's going on? I didn't know that is actually possible, but yes, they are controlling our lives, and we need to just get ahead of this. But at the same time, we have seen in New York City a huge amount of gentrification on housing. And Laura touched on this, and what we're seeing also is that the gentrification of housing with this new technology, we also are experiencing gentrification of jobs. So with the technologies, there you get people from other parts of the world, other parts of the country coming in, and the folks who actually need the jobs don't get to access to those jobs, folks from our communities, Black, brown, women, people who can actually be trained. So we are thinking about moving more into like the campaigns that can train folks in those communities to be able to access to those jobs, rather than saying, we're gonna create jobs here. I'm the mayor of New York City, and I'm gonna be the best at this, and we're gonna actually move in the direction of creating jobs for everybody, but not really. So we're gonna get ahead of that. And lastly, the other thing I wanna talk about, which is I think the most important one that we're experimenting with, is around worker cooperatives. So, back in the 80s, in the 80s, I think, in the 70s, there was this idea that unions actually can be organizing workers and become members of a cooperative, right? Now with the decline of union membership, I think we have an opportunity to think about sectorial work, particularly in the public sector work and the services that we receive where public money is being given to private corporations. We can actually get that back and have those companies become unionized. But not only that, but also be owned by the workers. And because we work on issues in terms of reducing emissions in our city, ensuring that there is clear, nice air, we also want to ensure that we bring electric vehicles. So we are experimenting with this new thing, which is a campaign that will bring electric school buses and a pilot new brand company that will be a worker-owned cooperative, represented by ATU, one of the members of the unions. So it's a good idea, it's a new idea, but not only to have one company, because as it was mentioned before, that doesn't work. What we have to do is actually change and transform the entire sector. So we want to move in that direction. Get the entire sector of the public school buses to be a worker-owned cooperatives, because about $2.1 billion go to those companies from our taxpayers' money. And if we give the power to the workers and also ensure that parents and teachers are part of that worker cooperative, we have more accountability. So what I want to show quickly in my last few minutes is a video that from a rally that we had a couple weeks ago, where we have all these folks coming together, similar to the common good. Like, let's just come together and see how we can actually build up the kind of companies where workers can actually own the resources. And that's what we want to be moving on in terms of new ways of organizing. So hopefully I figured this one out. Let's see. Should I press which one? Which one do I press? I was not instructed. This one? Maybe?
The New York City school bus system is broken. This hurts parents, teachers, the drivers, and most of all, our kids, especially those with special needs. That's why a coalition of parents, education, environmental, labor, and community advocates has come together to call for a new model, a cooperative company that is jointly owned by unionized workers and parents.
Environmentally safe school bus that is run by a worker cooperative, that is run by people who believe in fair wages, who believe in environmental justice.
Parents have rated these companies and they've all been one-star, failing grades. We've known about this issue, but nobody has taken charge to make something happen. And today, I'm proud to see all of these people coming together. We have city council, we have parent groups, we have environmental groups, and we're all calling for change. Now is the time.
I represent 7,000 school bus workers in the city, and this is such an important issue for us. Imagine living in a community where there's a bus depot with 300 buses. And every morning in the winter, when the weather's 20, 25, 30 degrees, and they have to be ready to get out on the road, you can imagine what that yard and that community has to deal with diesel fuel. Electric buses make sense. Clean air. Those buses filled with fumes, and not only the driver and the attendant have to breathe them in all day, the children have to breathe them in all day. But electric buses will solve that.
I represent all the parents in New York City that have to deal with these school buses. And this year has been worse. I'm going to the mayor, the chancellor, and the senator to look at this problem, but there's more than what meets the eye.
New York State has committed to invest in electric vehicles, and New York City can show leadership by investing in the country's first unionized worker and parent-owned electric school bus co-op. This is an important step in transforming our economy from the bottom up, in which workers and communities control their own resources while protecting the health of our kids and reducing pollution. The New York City school bus system is broken. This hurts parents, teachers, the drivers, and most of all, our kids. That's why a coalition of parents, education, environmental. The New York City school bus system.
There you go. Got it. Yeah, I didn't know that we have a tab here. Okay. Well, this is an example of what can we actually be doing today, just to get workers to be not only organized, but also for them to own resources and for our communities and workers to come together. So I think my time is up, but I'm happy to answer questions once we get to the conversation. Thank you very much.